What if I told you that beneath Islam's holiest site, hidden for over 1,400 years, lies a secret so explosive, so dangerous, that even prophets hesitated to speak of it? A secret guarded not by men, not by locks, but by something otherworldly. This is not a myth. This is not folklore. This is a warning. For centuries, scholars, caliphs, and even scientists have dared to dig deeper, only to vanish, go mad, or die with their lips sealed in terror. The few who survived spoke of a serpent older than Mecca itself, a chest that whispers, and a truth so devastating that knowing it could rewrite history. Now, for the first time, the full story can be told. From the moment the Kaaba's foundations were laid by Abraham, to Muhammad's chilling final prophecy, to the real reason modern governments have classified all scans beneath the black stone. What you're about to witness is a chain of events so meticulously hidden, you'll question everything you've been taught. Why did the Prophet Muhammad personally seal the pit beneath the Kaaba with molten lead? What did the last man to open it see before his eyes were burned from their sockets? And who or what is Dhu al-Suwayqatain, the figure now stalking the halls of power with a message no one wants to hear? This is not just history. This is a countdown, and the final seconds are already ticking away. Do you dare keep watching? Or will you close this video and spend the rest of your life wondering what was buried beneath your prayers? Deep beneath the sacred walls of the Kaaba, hidden from the eyes of pilgrims and scholars alike, lies a secret so terrifying it defies belief. A monstrous black serpent, coiled in the shadows, guarding a treasure not meant for mortal hands. Its scales glisten like polished obsidian, its head crowned with horns like a demon from the depths. For centuries, it has slithered unseen, striking fear into those who dare approach. But this is no mere legend. This creature was seen, witnessed by the people of Mecca with their own eyes. They described it in hushed tones, a serpent so vast its body blotted out the light, its belly white as death, its gaze freezing the blood in their veins. And they swore it was no illusion. This serpent, they claimed, was no accident of nature. It was a guardian, placed there by divine will, protecting the Kaaba's most forbidden secret, a treasure hidden since the dawn of time, waiting for the final days. A treasure that would only be claimed by a man named Dhu al-Suwayqatain, a figure shrouded in prophecy. But who is this man? And what unspeakable power does this treasure hold? The story begins not with the serpent, but with the very foundations of the Kaaba itself, the first house built for mankind. Long before the deserts of Arabia echoed with the call to prayer, before the name of Muhammad rang across the land, the Kaaba stood as a beacon of monotheism in a world drowning in idolatry. It was raised by the hands of angels, then rebuilt by Adam after his fall from paradise. Beneath its sacred stones lay the remnants of a lost world, a time when humanity walked in the light of divine guidance. But as generations passed, mankind forgot. The Kaaba's purpose faded into myth, its walls surrounded by the grotesque idols of 100 false gods. The descendants of Ishmael, once the keepers of Abraham's legacy, now bowed to statues of stone. The truth was buried until a man named Ibrahim, the friend of God, received a command: take your wife Hajar and your son Ishmael to a barren valley and leave them there. Imagine the scene. A mother and her child, abandoned in a wasteland where no life could thrive. No water, no shelter, only the scorching sun and the whispers of the wind. Yet Hajar did not despair. When Ibrahim turned to leave, she asked him, "Has God commanded this?" He replied, "Yes." And with unshakable faith, she said, "Then he will not abandon us." Days passed. The last drops of water vanished. Ishmael, weak with thirst, cried out as his mother ran between the hills of Safa and Marwa, searching for help. That would never come until the miracle. The strike of an angel's wing, the gush of water from barren rock. Zamzam, the sacred spring, burst forth, a lifeline in the desert. And with it came the first signs of destiny unfolding. A passing tribe, drawn by the circling of birds over the valley, discovered Hajar and Ishmael. They begged to settle there, to share in the blessing of the water, and so Mecca was born. Years later, Ibrahim returned only to find a thriving community where once there was only dust. And then, the divine command came again: raise the foundations of the house. Father and son rebuilt the Kaaba, stone by stone. But as they worked, Ibrahim dug a hidden pit in its floor, a pit that would one day hold the Kaaba's greatest secret. A pit that would be sealed not by stone, but by something far more sinister. Centuries passed. The descendants of Ishmael multiplied, but corruption festered. The tribe of Jurhum seized control of Mecca, defiling the Kaaba with their greed. They stole from the offerings left by pilgrims, hoarding wealth meant for the sacred house. And then the reckoning. A monstrous black serpent appeared in the Kaaba, driving them back with its fangs. No thief could enter without facing its wrath. The people whispered, "This is no natural beast. It is a sentinel placed by God himself." The tribe of Jurhum fell, expelled by divine wrath, and the serpent remained silent, watchful. But the greatest test was yet to come. A man named Amr ibn Lohey, a leader of the tribe of Kuza, would commit an act so blasphemous it would echo through history. He brought idols into the Kaaba, defiling Abraham's sanctuary. And with that act, the darkness began. The people of Mecca forgot the oneness of God. They worshipped stones, twisted the rites of pilgrimage into obscenity, and even dared to commit unspeakable acts within the walls of the Kaaba itself. And all the while, the serpent watched. But the story does not end here, for deep beneath the Kaaba, the treasure remains. And the day will come when the last guardian falls and the final claimant rises. The question is, what happens when the seal is broken? The Kaaba stood silent under the weight of its own desecration. The once sacred house of Abraham had become a den of idols, its walls crowded with the grotesque faces of Hubal, Al-Lat, and Manac gods carved by human hands, worshipped by deluded hearts. The air inside reeked of incense and arrogance. The whispers of pilgrims drowned out by the clinking of gold as offerings piled at the feet of false deities. And yet, beneath it all, hidden in the shadows, the serpent waited. The people of Mecca had long forgotten its purpose. Some claimed it was a curse, others a guardian. But none dared test its patience. That is, until he arrived, Amr ibn Lohey. The man who would forever stain the legacy of Mecca. Amr was no ordinary sinner. He was charismatic, influential, a leader of the Kuza tribe. And when he returned from a journey to Syria, he brought back more than spices and silks. He brought idols. At first, the people hesitated. These foreign gods were strange, their forms unsettling, but Amr was persuasive. "These deities bring rain," he declared. "They grant victory in battle. Why should we limit ourselves to one god when the world offers so many?" Slowly, the poison spread. The Kaaba's sanctity eroded, replaced by a carnival of superstition. Pilgrims no longer circled the house of God. They staggered around it drunk, their rituals twisted into mockery. Women danced naked under the cover of night, their chants perverting the words once spoken by Abraham himself. The worst of it? They believed this was devotion, but the serpent did not strike, it watched. And the people grew bolder. Then came the day a man and woman dared to fornicate inside the Kaaba itself. They thought the shadows would hide their sin. They were wrong. The moment their bodies touched the sacred floor, the ground trembled. A hiss echoed through the chamber, low and venomous. The couple froze, their blood turning to ice. From the darkness, it emerged the black serpent, its eyes burning like embers. It did not attack, it did not need to. The message was clear. This house is not yours to defile. The two fled, screaming, their story spreading like wildfire. But even fear could not undo the damage Amr had wrought. Idolatry had taken root, and the people of Mecca would reap what they had sown. Generations passed. The Quraysh tribe rose to power, their merchants growing fat on the wealth of pilgrims. They rebuilt the Kaaba, but their hands were unclean. When they ran short of funds, they financed its construction with money from prostitution and usury coins, stained with sin. And as the walls rose, so did the arrogance of Quraysh. Then came the drought, the skies withheld their rain. The earth cracked like the bones of a starving man. The people turned to their idols, begging for mercy, but the statues remained silent. In desperation, they sought signs, any sign, that the gods had not abandoned them. That was when the tremors began. Deep beneath the Kaaba, the earth groaned. The ground shook so violently that buildings crumbled. And then the pit opened. The same pit Ibrahim had dug centuries ago, now yawning wide like the mouth of the underworld. From its depths came a gust of wind, hot and sulphurous, carrying a sound no human throat could produce. The people of Mecca fled in terror, convinced the end had come, but it wasn't the end. It was a warning. When the dust settled, the elders of Quraysh gathered, their faces ashen. Among them was Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, a man whose pride rivaled his wealth. He stepped forward, gripping an iron pickaxe. "I will be the first to strike the Kaaba," he declared. "If the gods punish me, then let it be so." The crowd held its breath as Al-Walid raised the axe and brought it down. The moment the stone cracked, a bolt of lightning split the sky. The strike was so close it blinded those who saw it, its thunder shaking the earth. Al-Walid staggered back, his hands burned, his heart pounding. The people screamed, "The curse is real." But Al-Walid, ever the opportunist, grinned through the pain. "No," he gasped. "This is a sign of favor. The gods have accepted our work." The people, desperate for hope, believed him. The rebuilding continued, but the corruption remained. The Quraysh raised the Kaaba's doorway high above the ground, declaring, "Only those we deem worthy may enter." They mocked the poor, turning God's house into a symbol of their tyranny. And all the while, the serpent stirred in the shadows, its patience wearing thin. But the darkest hour was yet to come, for in the year of the elephant, an army marched on Mecca, an army led by a man who sought to destroy the Kaaba itself. And as the people trembled behind their flimsy walls, they would witness a wrath so divine, it would shake the foundations of history. The year was 570 AD. The desert winds carried whispers of war as the tyrant, Abraham, marched toward Mecca with an army the likes of which Arabia had never seen. At its heart lumbered war elephants, massive armored beasts that shook the earth with every step. Abraham's goal? To destroy the Kaaba and replace it with his own grand cathedral in Yemen. He had sent messengers ahead with a chilling proclamation: "Submit or be crushed beneath the feet of my elephants." The people of Mecca were no warriors. They were merchants, shepherds, men who knew the weight of a coin but not a sword. Faced with annihilation, they did the only thing they could: they fled. Up into the mountains they climbed, watching helplessly as Abraham's forces surrounded their sacred city. Among those who remained was Abd al-Muttalib, the aging leader of Quraysh and grandfather of a boy, not yet born, a boy named Muhammad. When Abraham's scouts captured Abd al-Muttalib's prized camels, the old chief went to confront the invader himself. The meeting that followed would become legend. Abrha, seated on a golden throne, sneered at the Arab before him. "You come to beg for your life?" Abd al-Muttalib met his gaze without fear. "I come for my camels," the tyrant laughed. "You worry about livestock when I'm about to destroy your holy house?" The old man's reply echoed through history. "The camels are mine. The house belongs to its lord. He will defend it." And Abraha's smile faded. The next morning, as the army prepared its assault, the lead elephant, A monstrous beast named Mahmud refused to move toward Mecca. They beat it, stabbed it, but the animal knelt as if an invisible force held it down. Then the sky darkened. From the horizon came a sound like thunder, but not thunder, wings, thousands upon thousands of wings. The birds of Abraha carried stones of baked clay in their talons, each marked with a name. As the swarm descended, the stones fell like divine bullets, piercing armor, flesh, and bone. Men screamed as their bodies crumbled into rotting flesh. Abraha himself fled, only to die a slow, agonizing death as his limbs turned black and fell. Away piece by piece, the people of Mecca watched in stunned silence. The Kaaba stood untouched, but this was no mere victory, it was a sign. That same year, in the household of Abd al-Muttalib, a child was born. His mother Amina would later recount. A vision. When I gave birth, a light erupted from me so bright it illuminated the palaces of Syria. The boy's name was Muhammad, yet shadows gathered even at his birth. The serpent beneath the Kaaba grew restless. The treasure it guarded hummed with strange energy. And in the courts of Persia, the fire in the Zoroastrian temples burning, unchanged for 1,000 years, suddenly went out. The king's priests trembled as they consulted their books. A star has risen, they whispered. The Lord of the final age is born. Back in Mecca, the boy Muhammad grew under strange signs. When wet nurses came to claim him, none could feed him until Halima, a poor woman from the desert, took him in. Immediately, her dry breasts flowed with milk. Her emaciated camel grew fat. The barren land around her tent turned green. "This is no ordinary child," she told her husband at age 6. Tragedy struck. While traveling with his mother Amina, young, Muhammad stopped at her grave in the desert of Abwa. There, as she was buried before his eyes, the boy who would become the seal of prophets learned his first lesson in loss. Years passed. The Quraysh continued their idolatry, but whispers spread of a coming reckoning, of a man who would cleanse the Kaaba. The elders scoffed, but the more superstitious among them eyed the black stone in the Kaaba's corner with unease. It had turned darker in recent years, as if drinking in the sins of the people. Then came the day the Kaaba needed repairs after a flood. The tribes argued over who would have the honor of placing the sacred black stone back into the wall. Tensions rose. Knives were drawn until a young man stepped forward with a solution so simple it stunned them all. "Bring me a cloak," said Muhammad, now a man in his 30s. When one was brought, he spread it on the ground, placed the stone upon it, and had each clan leader lift a corner. Together, they raised it. Then Muhammad himself set the stone in. Placed with his own hands, the crowd murmured in awe. Here was wisdom beyond his years. But one man, a soothsayer named Waraka ibn Nawfal, studied Muhammad intently. "This is the one foretold in the scriptures," he confided to a friend. "The last prophet." Little did Waraka know how soon his words would prove true. For in a cave on Mount Hira, destiny waited. And the serpent beneath the Kaaba, sensing the turning of the ages, began to stir. The cave was silent. Not the quiet of peace, but the heavy, waiting silence of a storm about to break. Muhammad, now a man of 40, had been coming to this lonely place for years, seeking solitude, seeking truth. But on this night, the 17th of Ramadan, the mountain itself seemed to hold its breath. Then it happened. A presence filled the cave. Not a sound, not a shadow, but a force so immense it crushed the air from Muhammad's lungs. Before him stood a figure of unbearable radiance, its wings spanning the horizon. "Read," it commanded. Muhammad, trembling, gasped out the only words he could. "I cannot read." The angel, for it could be nothing else, seized him in a grip that burned like ice. "Read," it repeated, its voice shaking the very rock. "In the name of your Lord who created man from a clot of blood. Read. And your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know." The words tore through Muhammad like lightning, searing themselves into his soul. When the angel released him, he fled down the mountain, his body shaking, his mind reeling. Had he gone mad? Was this some demon's trick? Halfway down, the voice came again, but this time from the sky itself. He looked up and saw the angel, filling the heavens, its form now too vast for human eyes to bear. "O Muhammad," it boomed, "you are the messenger of God, and I am Gabriel." The world spun. Muhammad stumbled home to Khadijah, his wife, collapsing into her lap. "Cover me," he begged. As she wrapped him in blankets, the revelations kept coming, waves of divine speech crashing over him, each word rewriting the fabric of his being. But something else stirred in Mecca that night. Beneath the Kaaba, the black serpent uncoiled. Its forked tongue tasted the air, sensing a shift in the unseen currents. The treasure it guarded pulsed as if in response to the revelations above. And in the shadows of the city, the Kahins, the soothsayers who communed with jinn, jerked awake from nightmares of fire. One, an old woman named Fatima bent Mur, screamed a warning to the empty night. The time of falsehood is over. The demonic rulers of Mecca's spiritual underworld knew before the humans did. Their reign of whispers and omens was under threat, and they would not surrender without a fight. 3 years passed. Muhammad preached in secret, gathering a small circle of believers. But when the command came to proclaim the message openly, the war began in earnest. At first, the Quraysh mocked. They called him a poet, a madman. Then, as his followers grew, their tactics turned vicious. Slaves who embraced Islam were dragged across burning sand. Bilal, an Ethiopian convert, had a boulder placed on his chest under the desert sun as his torturer demanded he renounce Muhammad. His only reply? Ahad. Opening parenthesis, 1:1. Closing parenthesis. But the darkest attack came not from swords or whips, but from the unseen world. One night, as Muhammad prayed near the Kaaba, a group of sorcerers gathered in secret. They had pooled their darkest arts, crafting a spell woven from the hair of the dead and the blood of black dogs. As they chanted, something slithered out from between the idols, a jinn in the form of a viper, its eyes glowing with malice. It shot toward Muhammad like an arrow. Just before it struck, Gabriel appeared. With a single word, the demonic creature exploded into smoke. The next morning, the sorcerers were found dead in their homes, their faces frozen in terror. The Quraysh escalated. They declared a total boycott against Muhammad's clan, the Banu Hashim. For 3 years, no one could trade with them, marry them, or even speak to them. The streets of Mecca became a minefield where a kind word to the wrong person could mean exile or death. Through it all, the serpent beneath the Kaaba grew more active. Pilgrims began reporting strange sounds from the foundation, a rhythmic scraping, like scales on stone. The black stone darkened further, its surface now unnaturally warm to the touch. Then came the year of sorrow. For the first time in living memory, someone entered the Kaaba's forbidden interior. The stench of old blood and rotting offerings hit him like a wall. The walls were covered in pagan murals, Abraham casting lots with arrows, Jesus seated beside Mary as if divine. "Erase them all," Muhammad ordered. But when they reached the back corner, even the boldest companions hesitated. There, in the floor, was Ibrahim's pit, the one dug centuries ago. Its seal stone had cracked clean in half. And from the darkness, below came a sound no man should ever hear. The dry, scaly whisper of something massive shifting in the depths. Muhammad knelt. He placed his palm on the broken stone, and the sound stopped. "This," he said quietly, "is not yet the time." He ordered the pit resealed. Outside, he faced the terrified Meccans. These were the people who had tortured his followers, driven him into exile, sworn to exterminate his message. Now they cowered, awaiting judgment. Muhammad's words stunned them. "Go, you are free." Not a single house was looted. No women taken. Only 4 criminals, unrepentant murderers, were sentenced to death. The rest received mercy that would echo through generations, but one secret remained. As the crowds dispersed, a handful of companions saw it, the prophet's hand trembling where he'd touched the sealed pit. And when he thought no one was looking, he wiped something from his palm, something dark, something that moved. The dream returned, not to Muhammad this time, but to a young boy named Abdullah, the son of a freed slave. In the vision, he stood before the Kaaba at midnight, watching as the black stone pulsed like a living heart. Then, from the pit beneath the sacred house, a voice called his name, not in Arabic, not in any human tongue. A sound that bypassed his ears to vibrate directly in his bones. When he woke screaming, his father dismissed it as a child's nightmare. But the next night, it happened again. This time, the dream showed him the serpent, not coiled in menace, but lying motionless, its obsidian scales dull in the moonlight. Dead? No, waiting. And beside it the treasure, a chest of blackened iron, its surface etched with symbols that burned when Abdullah tried to look at them. The third night, the voice spoke clearly. The key is coming. The boy told no one. Meanwhile, in Medina, Muhammad received a visitor, a Bedouin chief with wild eyes and a story that made even battle-hardened companions clutch their prayer beads. "We found a cave in the Hijaz," the man rasped. "Inside ... Something was digging, not an animal, not human. The walls were scored with marks like..." He held up his hands, fingers curled into unnatural hooks. Muhammad's face darkened. "You sealed it with boulders no 10 men could move," the chief nodded. But messenger of God, the sounds didn't stop. That evening, the prophet gathered his closest companions. "There are realms beyond this one," he said quietly. "Some doors must remain closed until their time." He didn't speak of the pit. He didn't need to, but the desert had ears. Within weeks, whispers spread among Medina's Jews about a guardian beneath the temple, a clear reference to Jerusalem. But the similarities chilled those who knew the Kaaba's secret. Then came the incident at the marketplace. A Persian merchant, a Zoroastrian, was caught sketching the Kaaba's layout in disturbing detail. When questioned, he claimed a fire dream had commanded him to find the well of the twin serpents. The man vanished from his cell that night, leaving only a pile of salt where his chains had been. Muhammad ordered all wells near the Kaaba inspected. What they found defied reason. At the bottom of Zamzam, where no diver could reach, lay a cavern, not natural carved. Its walls bore the same scorch marks as the Hijaz cave, and at its center, a pedestal with empty manacles. The prophet sealed the discovery immediately. But one truth became undeniable. The serpent under the Kaaba was never alone. The thief died screaming. His name was Harith al-Kinani, a tomb robber who had plundered graves from Petra to Babylon. But the Kaaba's pit was different. He had waited years for this moment, studying guard rotations, bribing a custodian's nephew, even fasting for 40 nights to purify his intent. On the 17th of Ramadan, the same night Muhammad first received revelation, Harith made his move. The lock yielded easily to his tools. The stone slab, though heavy, slid aside with a groan that echoed like a dying breath. Then came the descent, down steps worn smooth by something far older than human feet. What he found in the chamber below would haunt Islam scholars for centuries. The walls weren't stone, but metal cold to the touch despite Mecca's heat, etched with symbols that squirmed under torchlight. The serpent lay coiled around a rectangular object the size of a sarcophagus, its scales glistening with what looked like fresh blood. Harith's greed overcame his terror. He stepped forward and the serpent moved, not to strike, not to flee. It simply unwound itself, slithering into a shadowed corner as if allowing the violation. The chest opened with a hiss of releasing pressure. Inside lay neither gold nor jewels, but a book bound in black leather. Its pages were neither parchment nor papyrus, but a material that flexed like living skin. When Harith touched it, the cover split open, revealing text that rearranged itself into his native Arabic. He who reads this shall know 3 truths. The first will blind him, the second unmake him, the third. The rest blurred as Harith's. Vision failed. He stumbled back, clawing at eyes that now saw only endless desert under a green sun. By the time he crawled back into the moonlight, his hair had turned white. 3 days later, as he lay dying in a back alley, his final words were whispered to a street sweeper. It's not a treasure. It's a test. And the third truth. The third is, his corpse was found with both eardrums burst. When news reached Muhammad, he did something unprecedented. He ordered the pit's entrance welded shut with molten lead. The black stone darkened to pitch black that same hour. Yet the most chilling event came during the Prophet's farewell pilgrimage. As 100,000 believers circled the Kaaba, witnesses reported seeing the serpent's silhouette through solid stone motionless at last. Its massive body aligned precisely with the chest below. Scholars would later note this was the only Hajj where no accidents, no crimes, not even a single argument occurred among the pilgrims, as if something was ensuring perfection. On his return to Medina, Muhammad fell ill. His final sermon contained a cryptic warning: "There will come a man from my lineage who will seek what was sealed. When the moon bleeds and the twin rivers run dry, let no hand open what God closed." He died 3 days later, his last fevered words whispered to Ali, "The key is not for this age." The pit remained sealed. But in the year 683 CE, just 50 years after Muhammad's death, Mecca would burn. The Umayyad army, besieging Abdullah ibn al-Zubair's rebels, launched flaming projectiles that reduced the Kaaba to rubble. When the smoke cleared, survivors swore they saw something glint in the ruins. Something rectangular. The year of fire. 683 CE. Flames devoured Mecca as Umayyad catapults rained hell upon Abdullah ibn al-Zubair's rebels. The Kaaba, Islam's heart, collapsed into scorched rubble. And as the smoke cleared, the soldiers sent to sift through the wreckage made a discovery that would haunt the caliphate for centuries. The pit was exposed, not just open, shattered, as if something had erupted from below. The lead seal Muhammad had ordered was melted away, its edges twisted outward in jagged spikes. And at the bottom of the chamber, clear as day, lay the black chest. Empty. The serpent was gone. Abdullah, desperate to legitimize his rebellion against Damascus, ordered an immediate investigation. What his men found defied explanation. The walls of the chamber were scratched not with tools, but with something that left grooves too precise for human hands, too symmetrical to be random. Ancient Kufic script mixed with older, stranger symbols, all repeating the same phrase: "He comes." The ground around the pit was littered with dead birds, not burned, not crushed, but desiccated, as if every drop of moisture had been sucked from their bodies. And most chilling of all, footprints. Not human, not animal. Three-toed, elongated, leading from the pit's edge to the ruins of Zamzam well, then vanishing at the water's edge. Abdullah did what any ruler would do. He rebuilt the Kaaba, larger and grander than before, and claimed divine approval. But when his workers tried to fill the pit, the stones sank into the earth as if swallowed. Only after sacrificing 7 lambs, their blood poured directly into the opening, did the ground finally accept the new foundation. The Umayyads retook Mecca 2 years later. When Caliph Abdul Malik entered the restored Kaaba, he reportedly collapsed at the threshold, screaming about a voice from the walls. He ordered the entire structure lined with thick tapestries, not for decoration, but muffling. For the next 1,000 years, every caliph, sultan, and emperor who tried to excavate the pit met disaster. Harun al-Rashid, 786 CE, sent a team of scholars with iron tools. They returned mute, their tongues blackened, their notebooks filled with the same three-toed footprint sketched over and over. The Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim, 1020 CE, allegedly opened the pit himself and vanished for 3 days, returning with no memory of where he'd been. His beard turned white. Suleima, and the magnificent 1543 CE commissioned Ottoman engineers to dig beneath the Kaaba. Their tunnel collapsed, crushing 40 men. The sole survivor babbled about a light that peeled flesh from bone. Then, in 1981, modern technology revealed what ancient rulers feared. During renovations, Saudi engineers scanned beneath the Kaaba with ground-penetrating radar. The images showed the original pit now filled with what geologists identified as anomalous metallic sediment. A network of tunnels radiating outward, some leading to Zamzam, others stretching toward Mount Arafat, and at the center, a void, an empty space where the radar showed nothing, not rock, not metal, just perfect, unbroken absence. The scans were classified immediately, but one technician, years later, drunkenly confessed to a colleague, the void wasn't empty, it was looking back. Then came 2016. A young custodian named Yusuf, cleaning the Kaaba's interior after Hajj, noticed something strange. The black stone was bleeding. A thin trickle of dark fluid seeped from its base, evaporating before it could stain the marble. When he reported it, the reaction was swift. Senior clerics dismissed it as condensation. The security footage was erased. Yusuf was transferred to a remote mosque in Tabuk, but that same night, seismic sensors across Western Arabia detected tremors originating directly beneath the Kaaba, lasting precisely 17 seconds. The pattern matched no known fault line, and in Medina, an elderly scholar awoke screaming from a dream. When his students calmed him, he kept repeating one phrase, "Du al-Suwaikatin is here." The final prophecy was never written down. Muhammad whispered it to Ali on his deathbed words. So volatile they were passed mouth to ear for generations, never inscribed, never recorded. But in the 12th century, a Sufi mystic named Ibn Arabi dared to allude to it in coded verse. When the moon splits a second time, and the twin rivers taste ash, a lean man with fire in his veins will ask what was never meant to be asked. For centuries, scholars debated its meaning. Then, on September 28, 2035, it happened. A Saudi geologist named Dr. Tariq al-Harbi, a descendant of the Prophet's tribe, was conducting routine maintenance on the Kaaba's climate control system when his thermal camera malfunctioned. The readout showed something impossible: a perfect rectangle of absolute zero heat signature beneath the black stone. Against protocol, he scanned deeper. The next image showed the pit not as empty, but occupied. The serpent was back, coiled, tighter than ever, its body wrapped around a now visible black chest. And standing over them both, clear as day, the thermal silhouette of a man, not a shadow, not an artifact, a figure. Tariq's hands shook as he zoomed in. The man's outline showed unnatural proportions, elongated limbs, a torso too narrow for human anatomy. And where his face should have been, the thermal scan revealed only swirling darkness, as if his features existed in a spectrum beyond infrared. Then, the camera died. When Tariq rushed to the surface, he found Mecca in chaos. Pilgrims were pointing at the sky, where the crescent moon had visibly cracked, a jagged black line splitting it from tip to tip. Satellite feeds confirmed it, a meteorite impact so precise it seemed targeted. That night, Tariq dreamt of the lean man from Ibn Arabi's prophecy. "You have seen the keyhole," the figure whispered. "Now comes the key." Tariq awoke to news that the Tigris and Euphrates, Islam's twin rivers, had simultaneously run dry for the first time in recorded history. Their beds cracked open, revealing ancient ruins no modern archaeology could explain. The next morning, The custodian of the two holy mosques received a visitor, a gaunt Yemeni scholar calling himself Du al-Suwayqatain. His identification papers were flawless, yet no records existed of his birth. His knowledge of hadiths was encyclopedic, yet no teacher claimed him. And when he spoke, his voice made the Kaaba's marble floors vibrate. "The time of the test is here," he declared. The Saudi government placed him under house arrest. Then, the disappearances began. A renowned physicist who analyzed Tariq's thermal images vanished from a locked lab, leaving only a puddle of salt water. The head of the Kaaba's custodial committee was found dead in his home, his face frozen in awe, his hands clutching pages of calculations about interdimensional resonance. And in Medina, the elderly scholar who'd warned of Du al-Suwayqatain's arrival died whispering, "It was never treasure. It was a scale, and we are being weighed." On the eve of Hajj 2036, Du al-Suwayqatain escaped custody. Security cameras showed him walking through the walls of his Riyadh prison, his body phasing like a ghost. His trail led straight to Mecca. When authorities stormed the Kaaba at dawn, they found only three things. The black stone had split clean down the middle, revealing a hollow core filled with a substance labs would later identify as non-terrestrial biological matter. The pit's seal was broken again, this time from the inside out. And on the Kaaba's inner wall, freshly carved in letters that smoked slightly, were the words, "Idem ahes kasihes." As of this recording, Du al-Suwayqatain has never been found. The Kaaba remains open to pilgrims, though custodians report that the black stone now occasionally pulses with warmth. And deep beneath the marble, seismographs detect something new, a rhythmic vibration, precisely every 17 minutes, like a heartbeat. Countdown. The truth is now in your hands. For centuries, the elite have buried this knowledge. Caliphs who burned manuscripts, scientists who vanished overnight, governments that still monitor anyone who digs too deep. But today, you have crossed the forbidden's threshold. You've seen what lies beneath the Kaaba. You've heard the serpent's whisper. You know the name Du al-Suwayqatain and what his return truly means. But this is only the beginning. Somewhere, right now, a clock is ticking, a door is opening. And the next chapter of this story will rewrite the future of faith itself. The question is, will you be ready when it arrives? Here's what you must do next. Smash that like button, because this knowledge is dangerous, and algorithms hide what doesn't trend. Prove you're not afraid of the truth. Subscribe with notifications on, because when the next sign appears, and it will, you'll hear it here first. No censors, no filters. Comment, "I see the pattern below." Let's find out how many others have connected the dots between the split moon, the bleeding stone, and what's coming next. They thought they could bury this forever. But you're now part of the unraveling. The next video will change everything. Will you be there when it drops? Or will you look away and risk being left behind when the final seal breaks? The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Time is running out.